Spectrovision Radio. Spectrovision Radio.
Hello and welcome to the Modern Fairy Sightings podcast, where we listen to people's fairy encounters. But take heed, we're not talking about winged Tinkerbells here. These are real fairies, real encounters that took people like you and I by surprise. Stay a while and hear their stories. My name is Jo Hickey Hall, and I'm a folklore researcher. Dear listener, I hope you are still finding pockets of love and joy in what has been an increasingly turbulent time in the world and everything being so fast moving. Like many of you, I am finding it hard to witness what's bearing out. There is such a conflict within, mirroring the conflict externally. I find this shows up in my body as inflammation, anger. In fact, it feels like a great rage to see what is being enacted on our fellow human beings. The lack of official aid or recognition of what is taking place feels absurd and astonishingly far removed from who we are as a human race. We've seen all our moral and ethical boundaries torn down and subverted before our eyes. In my work, I consider the trickster frequently and have long thought of this current time, 2016 onwards, perhaps a little before, as the era of the trickster. The trickster brings chaos. They destructure, cross boundaries, and blur distinctions. Like fairies, they subvert and are paradoxical in nature. This led me over the past months to think about how the trickster, as an archetype, sits at the thresholds. This is where we find them. Yet he is now being channeled through our leaders whose masks have dropped. We see the diabolical manner in which they shun society's needs and uphold the backdrop of elite systems of power, which in turn hold them up. But I have wondered, by that theory, if our leaders are tricksters sitting at the edges, watching the world burn as we teeter at the precipice of what I believe is a completely new age, then what is holding up our world? Where are the structures? I will share with you a personally meaningful image which has been with me as long as I can remember. I'm on what seems to be a high mountain plateau. Before me is a great expanse of space made up of huge black and white checkerboard tiles, each a couple of meters square, that stretch out to the edges of the plateau. I stand just inside the entrance of a gigantic structure with classical columns that reach up tens of meters above, each uniformly a few meters in diameter. At this point, something happens and the columns begin to rumble and fall, and I am running out of the collapsing structure onto the checkered outdoor space as the columns crash down behind me. There the scene ends. It feels like a memory, but I've held this image for so long I am unsure of its origin, whether it possibly represents an actual past life memory or a deeply ingrained metaphoric dream. The image is strong. I think about this scene a lot at the moment as we witness in real time the columns of our modern Western society crashing down, just as Rome fell, just as many iterations of our existence before that. We are here, my friends, living through these bewildering times again. But I feel there is much to be hopeful about. As leaders and their systems, vestiges of the outplayed game of the last 2,000 years, sit channeling the trickster at the edges, unwittingly sealing the end of their old world, it made me ask myself, what is holding up the central structure of humanity? And the answer, of course, is you and I. We, the people, are the structure. We are already building the columns. We are already building a new world that aids one another, which refuses to accept the status quo and ways of the old world. We are taking care of one another, reaching out, recognizing that a dualistic world is severely limited and can no longer exist in where we're going. The trickster who inhabits chaos encourages us too, within the edges of this old world, to break through the boundaries of corrupted laws and dismantle the status quo, whilst simultaneously new structures are forming which will form the basis of our way forward, embracing non-duality, the emergence of the divine, and recognition of the divine within nature and within each person. As I have said before, I believe that in each and every one of us, something is rising. Something is taking form, and you just need to take some time and space to listen to what that is for you. It will be different for everybody. For some, it is direct action to aid those caught in the collapsing columns of the old world. I am personally very proud of my cousin Tig at this time, who is taking part in the global Samud flotilla. He is on the Irish boat taking medicines and baby food to Gaza in a bid to break the siege. Others are called to take care of people in their local community or looking after the natural world. Some are creating beautiful artworks and music to soothe our stressed out minds and bodies and ease us through these times. Or can it even be as simple as holding peace in your heart to help ground our progression towards these new times that we are moving towards? I hope these words aid you in some way. What we're experiencing feels increasingly more overwhelming each day, particularly if we don't take time out to care for our well-being. Being in nature, even for short snaps, can help. Watching the birds or observing the leaves on the trees. I try to meditate whenever I get a chance each day, or a walk in the local park, even for a short time. I've added some links to the show notes, sharing what helps me, and at the end of this episode, I am adding one of my meditations, which is about crossing the threshold, the metaphorical threshold at this time, and listening to what your role might be. It kind of aids you in perhaps opening to that. So I give that as an offering in the hope that it might aid some people. And I have lots of these meditations on Patreon. You can join us there to support this show and also meet others who are familiar with these other worlds. We join for a quiet meditation every month on a Saturday morning London time. One other thing to note is that on the 22nd, 23rd of November, the Body Mirror System comes to Bristol. Anik Brofman is coming here to teach the class. These are 2 full days, Saturday and Sunday. They're intense but hugely transformative, and they are a lot of fun as Anik is very entertaining. We'll be learning some techniques including the following: understanding and experiencing yourself as a being of energy, feeling and directing energy and seeing energy, auras, chakras, thought forms, understanding the relationship between your body and your consciousness, understanding how symptoms in the body reflect tensions in the consciousness, reading the body as a map of consciousness and understanding the inner causes to outer symptoms, understanding the chakras and their associations with specific parts of the consciousness and specific parts of the body, using various tools designed for healing, white light, colours and thought forms, and finally seeing the results of putting these techniques and tools to use. We are over 2/3 full right now, but there are some spaces left if folks would like to jump in. If you're a first-timer booking at least 1 month before the class, you get a £50 discount. The link to more information is on the show notes. And now to this latest episode. I speak with Rick, whose father was an intelligence agent in the CIA during the 1950s and 1960s. In 1954 in Austria, as a very young child, while left alone briefly in his parents' bed one night, something unseen began pulling at his body, and eventually a red being popped up at the side of his bed and shouted in his face. The family later returned to live in various places in North America, but Rick continued to have experiences throughout his life. Huge thanks to Rick for sharing his encounters with us. I hope you enjoy the episode, and remember to stick around right at the end of the show for that threshold meditation. These times are bewildering, but stay true to the love that you know exists inside you and from those around you, and come back to what is truly meaningful at this time for you. Take care of yourselves and each other, and always remain curious. Time to Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Modern Fairy Sightings podcast. I'm Jo Hickey Hall, and this time I am joined by Rick, who is currently living in Pennsylvania. But as we will hear through talking to you, Rick, you are a lifelong experiencer, and you've lived in many places, and your life seems filled like a rich tapestry of these encounters with Otherworld. So welcome.
Yeah, thank you very much. This is really nice to talk to you. And as you know, I'm a big fan of what you've been doing with the podcast. I really I admire that, and I think this is very important to be doing this sort of thing.
Thanks so much, because we've been in touch for quite some time now, and it's a marvel, really, to hear about the kinds of experiences you've had. And I think that, and I do hear this from a lot of people, is that they, in listening to the podcast, it kind of sometimes triggers memories of, their own past encounters that they may have just kind of cast aside as, oh, I'm sure that was dream, or oh, I'm sure that meant nothing. And yet hearing somebody else talk about their experiences often really kind of brings it something about it to the surface again.
Yeah, I think that was definitely true in my case. I'm in my 70s now, and some of these memories had begun already to come back to me. And things that I've had in dreams, I've been able to distinguish very clearly from things which were much more tangible. And I look back and I say, oh, well, that was entirely different and much more real in some sense. So these memories do come back.
Mm. Well, things started for you in Austria, where you were living. You talked about this happening around 1954. Would you like to begin there and just describe how that was for you and what happened around that time?
Yeah, that was. I have only a few memories. I mean, I was very small at that time. This was, as you said, around 1954. My dad was an intelligence officer, and he had recently got a job at the U.S. Embassy in Vienna. So we moved there as our first overseas posting. And I remember that we lived in a very nice neighborhood, very leafy neighborhood, in a large house, which I was told later had been the home of a famous film star in Austria. So this was a big old place and nice gardens around it. But I remember being very frightened at night. I used to cry a lot when it was time to go to bed. I just really did not want to go to bed because I would have what, looking back now, seem to have been visions, really terrifying sorts of visual experiences. Oh, a cat has just joined me here.
I feel like it is.
And I don't remember the content of those visions, but I do remember the physical sensations of being about to be launched into them. There was always a feeling of lifting out of my body and kind of rolling away into space. If you can imagine the way a log will roll, it was something like that. And this would happen to me even during the daytime if I was napping on the couch or something. I would feel myself lift out of my body and kind of go spinning or rolling off somewhere, and I think, oh no, here it comes. Um, but these things terrified me, whatever they were, and one, and again, I don't remember what it was I saw, but I knew these things were horrific. But I remember one night asking my mom and dad whether I could sleep in their bed with them, because I just did not want to be alone. I was lying awake in the bed, quite nervous. They were in the bathroom brushing their teeth and just getting ready for bed, and I was wide awake, and I suddenly felt something kind of pulling and tugging at my feet under the covers. And of course, I don't even, I'm not tall enough to go even halfway down the bed, so something's down there fooling around with my feet. And I turned to my right side. I'm lying very near to the edge of the bed, and so I turn on my right side, and I all of a sudden have a feeling of dread and anxiety, and this face, this head pops up very suddenly at the side of the bed, very round and very red, with a very pinched, angry expression, and shouts "Fa" at me, right into my face. Just that one sound. So of course I'm sure I was yelling and sobbing and crying at that point. I described this to my parents, and they discounted it, of course, and they just no, you're having a waking nightmare. We don't know what's going on. Um, but that seemed to be, and looking back on it now, it seemed to be the kind of typical, maybe, of the other things I was seeing, and which I had very quickly forgotten, because this was a terrifying experience. It kind of passed into our family folklore, this whole notion of the Fa. But it was terrifying, and I had the feeling at the time that it was intending to scare me.
Mm. Yeah, that's and I think we can trust the impressions that we're left with, and with these things there's never a sense of, I've got it, and this is what it is, and this is definitely like this, and this is definitely like that. But I think what happens is that we're left with a sense of something, an impression of something. And I think for a lot of people, when they have an experience and they walk away, they usually have with some kind of impression. And if the impression is that you felt that it was doing that to frighten you, then I think you can trust that impression.
Yeah, yeah. Now, how these things ended, I don't remember. I was told that they took me eventually to a child psychologist or a doctor or something, and this person, whoever that was, did something which either put an end to these experiences or blocked my ability to perceive them clearly. So that did eventually stop, but it was very vivid, these things, and I do recall the vividness of them all, and especially that one encounter.
Mm. Wow. So do you remember anything about the appointment with that professional medical person? I don't know what kind. So did you say it was a psychiatrist?
It may have been,
Yeah.
which was interesting. I mean, Vienna being the birthplace of psychiatry,
Yeah,
but
amazing. So do you remember
but
anything about that appointment?
that's the thing, is I don't remember any details of this person, whoever they were. I don't remember how they spoke to me. I don't know what happened. But
Mm,
I was told later by my parents that whatever they did was able to pacify this somehow.
yeah. It's
And
interesting.
I've sometimes wondered whether they hypnotized me into a an inability to visualize anything or to see anything. Just like it seemed to, perhaps, at least for a while, bring a curtain down between me and that dimension of things.
Mm. I mean, for you to be taken there by your parents sounds as if this was something that they were aware was ongoing for some time. I think just a one-off incident is unlikely to have prompted, any kind of medical intervention or psychological intervention.
Hmm.
So that's very interesting. Um, and how, because just noting the fact that your father was an intelligence officer as well, I find that's quite fascinating. How was that for him? Were you aware of, I guess as you grew older, you may have been, but were you aware of what he was kind of working on?
No, not until very many years later, of course. All I knew is that he had a very busy job, and he seemed to work with very interesting people. And but I didn't know the nature of his work probably until I was in my early teens.
Yeah, because I know that you mentioned at least later on in your life he was working for the CIA. Is that correct?
Yeah, that was his career. He was in the CIA that whole time.
The whole time. Yeah, and I mean, I guess it won't have escaped, your notice and the listeners' notice either that these worlds and I guess we could say, government secrets, they lie very close to one another sometime. I don't know what you think about that.
No, that's actually a very good question. Um, I don't know. I don't know whether there's a kind of a receptivity to wider sorts of things on the part of people who are involved in that, or by their offspring. It's actually an interesting question.
Mm. Was your father, out of your mother and father, was your father particularly, concerned about what you had experienced as a child? I know it's difficult to remember because at this time you were around sort of 3 or 4, weren't you, when the
Yeah.
Far creature popped up. But do you remember whether it was potentially your mother or your father that was more concerned?
Well, my father was concerned because I was keeping him up all night with my crying,
Yeah.
and this interfered with his work the next day. I mean, it made it very hard for him to get enough sleep himself.
Mm.
Um, and he was, pretty, impatient with that, which of course I would have been in the same position.
Yes.
But they never really explored the nature of what I was experiencing or the details. I think it was just something very strange and something that maybe they didn't really want to deal with or feel very familiar with.
Yeah. And later on in your life, because you mentioned that the Far creature ended up in kind of family folklore, did did they feel able to talk to you about it when you were older, your parents?
No, and I don't think I ever brought it up as a memory either.
Mm.
This was all kind of when I was still very small, joking about the fa or something like that.
Yeah.
But this wasn't something that I raised as a topic of discussion with them later on.
But you talked about it with your own family, your own children.
Yeah, and I had forgotten about it for a long time, or at least it had just kind of passed out of my uh, um, close recollection. Much later, of course, I remembered it, and when I did remember it, then the texture of the whole thing came back quite strongly.
Yeah, you had mentioned the sense of dread, the feeling of dread, and the feeling that you were about to see something horrible, and this sense that you were being pulled out of wherever you were into another space. Can you describe that a little? I found that really interesting.
Well, that was more the general thing when I had that whole series of visionary experiences. The thing with the entity or whatever it was that popped up at the side of the bed, um, that was different. That was like a feeling of dread that something was instantly going to show itself to me.
Mm.
The other experiences when I would levitate out of my body and then see things, it was more of a there was a dread, but it was kind of longer lasting. You know, when I began to feel the physical sensations of leaving my body, there was a fear. It was just like, okay, now I'm being pulled into some other realm, some other. And of course, at that age, I'm not thinking in terms of dimensions or realms or anything, but that I was going somewhere else. I was going someplace different and frightening, and in which I would be completely vulnerable to whatever it was that I was seeing.
It's a lot to deal with as a child, isn't it? You can imagine, you
Oh
know,
yeah,
it's really.
and I had no context for that. I had nothing to compare that to and think, oh, this is like what you hear about or something like that. It was just much more immediate than that.
Mm. And so the ages for around the levitation, those would have been around the age of 3 and 4.
Yeah.
And did all of those take place in Austria?
Yeah. Yeah. We moved to Munich in Germany after that, and I had no experiences like that at all in Munich.
And this was post the meeting with the did you say it was a psychiatrist or psychologist?
I, it was she was described to me as a psychiatrist. I don't know what
Psychiatrist.
I don't know what her job was, and I seem to remember that it was a woman, but only because I remember being told that it was a woman.
Okay. Yeah, yeah.
But Munich was after all of that.
Yes. So the levitation stopped once you had had this appointment too.
Yeah.
Mm. Yeah.
Although I did have experiences of, and I can't remember if these were in really strong dreams or if they were actual. Very similar to things other people describe to you. That feeling of being able to kind of float down a staircase.
Mm. Hmm.
There was a feeling that I would have to touch the banister with my hand, and if I pushed off from the head of the stairs, I could drift down at least 3 or 4 steps without my feet touching them. And there was always this feeling of if I could really get going, if I could push off very strongly, I might make it all the way down to the bottom of the stairs without touching them. But I don't know if this was a dream, and if it was a dream, if this is a dream that's common to children for some reason.
Yeah, it's so familiar to me. It's familiar from my own experience and also, speaking to other people, and it is around the age of 3 or 4. Is that how old you were at the time?
I may have been a little older actually for
Yeah.
those,
Mm.
but I can't be sure. I can't remember for sure.
Yeah, and this sense of kind of the willing, being able to hover above and somehow
Yeah,
will oneself down, and this is really common actually.
that's so interesting. I wonder what that is.
Yeah, yeah. With people like you and I who are experiencers, I should say this is really common. So it's something that I want to look at later in the following book. And I really want to focus on children's experiences because I do find it absolutely fascinating. So when we were having a chat, also you mentioned about you had mentioned having some experiences in Mexico City in around 1960. Do those feel okay to share?
Those are yeah. I can talk about those a little bit. Not really, I'm not even sure how to classify those. So there were, well, first of all, we lived in two houses in Mexico City. We were in one house for about a year, and nothing much happened there. And we eventually had to move because they were doing road work in the front and knocking down the wall and cutting into the garden a little bit. So we had to move to a different place. And the second house, there was something really wrong with it. There was um, one experience. Well, I don't know. I'm hesitating a lot, and you can probably hear the nerves in my voice. This is, talking about these things is very, yeah, it's kind of intense. But anyway, one night I had the sensation of being lifted from my bed and carried down the hallway through my parents' bedroom onto their balcony. But they were asleep in the bed. I had no idea what it was that was holding me, and I didn't want to see it particularly. And I remember there was an odd cast of light around. It should have been pitch black at that point, but there was an odd kind of luminescence about the surroundings. I remember looking down and seeing the stonework of the balcony, and I guess I blacked out at some point, and eventually, of course, found myself back in my own bed. I have no idea what that was. The other experience was uh, is something I think I would prefer not to talk about. It's just
Mm-hmm.
very, very gruesome and very, very, very frightening. And that was more of a kind of a visionary experience. But the details are really kind of too awful for me to even want to call to mind right now.
I'm so sorry. That's really awful. And I think, the fact that you tie it to that house and as if there was something really wrong with that house. I think it's interesting to note that because in the first house that you were having experiences in Vienna, you did note that that used to be the house of a film star before the war, and I'm assuming that they had to leave Austria, I had to leave Vienna as a result of the war. And, we don't know, I'm not sure whether you know who that famous person was. I have a feeling you weren't able to find out who that person was.
No, I don't know who it was. I don't know what happened to them during the war or after the war, but I know that the house passed into the um, ownership of the U.S. authorities in Vienna, and because they would, distribute these places to people who were there on assignment. So whatever happened to the original owner, I never found out.
Mm. And it just it begs the question, did something happen to that previous owner and did that have something to do with this being that you were able to perceive? And also, could that be the explanation for what happened in Mexico?
Yeah, it's just I'll never know.
Yeah. I think the unnatural light is very interesting too, because when there are shifts, from one state to another, and we're going into these worlds, the light is something that is often noted. Sometimes the light is muted, sometimes there's a strange kind of air to the light. Sometimes, if there's colours, the colours become very vivid, and equally in some situations, particularly in time slips, this is noted. If people find themselves in a different space altogether, then the colours are actually turned down. The colours are muted and
Hmm.
different. So I think that shift is something also, to note. I mean, in some respects, we could, tie that into the Oz factor. Jenny Randall's description of moving from one place to another, a bit like Dorothy, going into Oz. And if you remember, then it goes from, the black and white into color in
Oh yeah, yeah,
film.
and into full color. Yeah, that was a great effect for that movie.
It really was, wasn't it? It's very magical to watch that as a child. And I remember watching that as a child. And so, with the Oz factor, you note these things. Were there any sense of sound with any of these experiences?
Um, that's another good question. And apart from that one being kind of shouting in my face, I can't think of any examples of sound. Oh, wait a minute. Wait. Um, More of vibration, I think. Not an audible hum, but more a feeling of a very gentle tremor, and I associate that more with the levitations in Austria.
Mm, yeah. Were you having dreams around then too when you were having the levitation?
Well, those levitations were the things that would put me into a space in which I would have those um, kind of visionary experiences. In terms of my ordinary dream state, I can't remember anything particular. I would guess that they were, much like the dreams that other children would have. But the things that I would see and experience after levitating were like an entirely different kind of space, and again, they frightened me badly, but I don't remember what they were.
Okay. Do you have even a sense of whether they were beings or spaces or just any kind of sensation from?
I think they were beings.
Okay.
And I mean, for me to have blanked them out, I mean, they were probably very threatening.
Mm. Yeah. How do you feel about them now, looking back?
Well, I noticed that I feel a little shaky even remembering these things,
Yeah.
and beyond that, I guess my only thought about these experiences is that I had them. I have no idea what they were. I don't know what they mean, if there's any meaning involved or attached to things like this. But but I know that they were not the usual day-to-day sorts of experiences. Even as a child, I knew that this was something beyond the ordinary.
Mm. Yeah, there's that sense. I understand that. Did do you know if any other members of your family had had these experiences?
I don't think so. I don't think so. Nobody in the family ever described anything remotely similar to me.
Because I suppose, when we're used to these kinds of things happening and then we have our own kids and they start having, bad dreams or boogeymen in their bedrooms and things like this, we're listening on a different level then, aren't we? Because we understand. I just
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Did any of your children ever report any strangeness?
Yes, but that's something that I probably shouldn't talk about without them, approving that.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely right. Yeah. Yeah, it is.
But you're right though that for a parent they listen with a much more sympathetic ear.
Absolutely. So the other time in your life that you spoke about was in Berkeley in California in
Hmm.
1975. Would you like to describe, how it was for you at that time?
In what year did you say?
I think you mentioned it was the summer of 1975, if
Yes,
I
yeah,
can.
yeah, 75. Yeah, I had moved up there to study at a Buddhist center in Berkeley, and looked around for a place to live. Finally, got a room in a place with another young fellow. I don't know in fact, what his job was. I didn't stay there very long. But I remember one night, and I had a mattress on the floor. This was very much kind of counterculture style living at the time. But this was the next levitation experience that I had. And it was so strong that it woke me. I suddenly woke feeling myself rise out of my body and then kind of slide back and forth in parallel with my body. And then almost as though my physical feet and my subtle body feet were kind of hinged together. I would begin to kind of pivot up and then go back down like that. Very, very strong sensations of this happening. And I looked over to my right, and there was what looked like a ghost standing by my bureau. And it was an odd sort of figure. It was the outline of a human shape, very, very sharply defined, almost like the silhouette target that you would see on a shooting range. You know, the body, the shoulders, the round head, like that. But inside those lines, it was like a swirling cloud. Whatever the material was that this thing was made up of was kind of swirling inside, and the only facial feature was a mouth that was kind of opening and closing, almost like a fish mouth.
Mm.
And this, and I seemed to, I could sense that I was in a different dimension at that point. And I kind of blanked or blacked out from that. And my next recollection is that I suddenly felt that I was outside and I was kind of walking next to somebody who either I couldn't see or I was not supposed to see. And walking along Grant Street in Berkeley, and somehow looking down to my right, I could see all the way down to the San Francisco Bay. But everything again had that luminous quality. Mm. In this case, kind of a light electric blue. It was a very odd sort of lighting. And this being, whoever it was or whatever it was, felt actually very friendly. And I seemed, I guess, at one point to black out from that. And the next thing I knew, I had woken up in my bed and it was morning. But I felt so friendly toward this thing and kind of liked it so much and wanted it to come back that I'm just, for lack of anything better to do or smarter to do, I made a bowl of soup and I set it on my dresser, chest of drawers, just kind of an offering to try to kind of show that I have felt good about it and wanted it to come back. But I never saw it again, whatever it was.
I love that. So, you've left an offering.
Yeah, I really wanted to extend friendship to it because I felt that it had done to me.
Mm. It's really beautiful. And for people leaving offerings, it's always about your loving intention. Whatever you offer to these beings or to these experiences or to these places, it's something from the heart. You never have to kind of go by the book, as it were, but feel what feels right to you. So at this time you were 24.
Let me think. Yeah, I would have to have been. Yeah, just about 24 exactly.
Mm. And did you say that it was a Buddhist school?
Yeah, there was a place called the Nyingma Institute in Berkeley. It was run by a Tibetan teacher.
Amazing. Do you think that being able to, because I guess I'm just kind of guessing here that your Buddhist practice may have revived or awoken aspects of your abilities?
That's very, very possible. I am still a Buddhist to this day. I mean, I've been a Buddhist really from my early adulthood on.
So around that time, that's when you had begun again to
Oh, begun. Yeah, 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 yeah. Just about. Yeah, at the point that I actually started a lot of meditation practice. At that point, this experience in Berkeley happened.
so that's beautiful. It's kind of a reawakening, and actually, it kind of almost comes full circle from where you're shut down as a child. I mean, I'm just suggesting things here. I'm not saying that this is true, but it feels to me at least like at some point in your life, and let's be clear about it, you were not enjoying those early experiences. At least your memory is that they were frightening, and
Hmm.
this is your parents are clearly trying to aid in some way by seeking help and with the best of intentions, with loving intention. And so these experiences, or that part of your ability to leave your body and see into other worlds, travel to other worlds, and maybe even communicate with these otherworldly beings, that is shut down. And yet, you know when you're 24, you're then returning, you're reawakening that within yourself, and you are also making that reconnection with these beings. And not only that, but a real sense of how good that feels.
Yeah, but the nature of the experiences was very different too. I mean, if at the point I began meditating, I'd begun to have experiences like the ones I had in Austria, I wouldn't have liked it very much. This encounter was a friendly one, and actually the first friendly one that I had, I did have another friendly one much later. But the terrifying things at this point were in the past. Now they're becoming more kind of more friendly.
Yeah, this is a kind of a reuniting and in a positive way with this kind of phenomena, I guess. So you mentioned the swirling mist. Did it have a color?
Yeah, kind of a light, um, almost mother of pearl. I think is the image that comes to mind now, thinking back at it.
Mm. And what did you feel from it? You mentioned friendliness. Do you?
Well, I had the impression of a friendly curiosity coming from it.
Yeah, amazing.
But again, kind of a reaching toward me in terms of interest, of attention.
It's very interesting, and the sense that you either weren't allowed to see it for some reason, which kind of rings true with some of these experiences that we are told, you can't look at me, because if you looked at me, this would have such a deep effect on you, and
Yeah.
a lot of these encounters, people are told, particularly angelic encounters, in fact, don't look directly at me, or so that kind of rung true for you.
Well, that's an interesting word, angelic, because that word hadn't come to my mind before, um, and that's not something I think about a lot. The angelic realms or anything like that. But certainly, whatever or whoever it was I was walking next to in the next stage of that vision had an angelic feeling, like something really. Um, Something advanced, something deeply kind, something interested, and something at which I was not really supposed to look.
Thank you. Did it feel familiar to you?
No, it didn't feel like anybody or anything that I had encountered before.
Mm, yeah, thank you. Now, you don't need to talk about it, but did you want to go on to speak about you mentioned that something happened later on, and there was another being later on that was part of a visitation. Did did you want to discuss that, or is that something that you'd prefer?
Yeah, that this was the thing in Washington D.C.
Okay.
Yeah, that actually was the next thing like that I had experienced, and in terms of something I would have classified as otherworldly, it was probably the last one.
Mm.
And this would have been in around 81 or 82. I can't remember exactly. But I lived in a large mansion in Washington. It was a group house, again, for a Buddhist group that I was in. There were 3 stories to the house, 3 floors, multiple rooms throughout. There was at the top floor, there was a large sculptor's studio or painter's studio, which kind of ran the length of the one side of the house. And I had a small bedroom just off of that. It was a small bathroom connected my bedroom to that artist's studio. And my room was very small. There was what looked like a boarded up fireplace or maybe a utility panel, but there was like a large square of cardboard nailed in place, shut, covering this hole. And I remember one night I was up there, and all of a sudden I heard bang, and I saw the cardboard being, or the plywood, whatever it was, kind of being punched out as though something really heavy had hit it from inside. And I thought, God, what is this? I wondered whether an animal had got in through the chimney and was kind of banging around inside. But I went to sleep. I thought no more about it. And at some point, I guess in the period of time right before I would usually have woken up, I was aware of something kind of scrabbling at the side of my mattress. So I looked, and there was this very odd creature, maybe a little more than half a foot in length, gray colored, um, four limbs as well as I can remember. They were like hind legs, but they were joined to the body in kind of an odd way. Um, and then 2 forearms, which this thing was kind of pawing at the side of my mattress. So I looked at this thing, and this happened too quickly for me even to wonder whether it was like maybe a regular animal or something like that. But I seem to recall that it had a, a scrap of fabric of some kind hanging on its back and trailing off its back a little bit, and it had a human face.
Mm.
Um, Bald as far as I can recall, but definitely a human, something between a human and a simian sort of look to the face.
Mm.
So this thing was trying to get my attention or wake me up, I guess. And I was so startled that I kind of flung my hand out and went, ah, like that. And it ran off, stopped at the threshold to the bathroom, the door of which was open. It stopped there and looked back at me with what I thought was a very sad look on its face, and ran into the bathroom. And I immediately felt terrible. I thought, God, this thing was trying to make contact, and I just reacted badly, and it looked so sad at being kind of driven away. So I got up immediately. Now, ordinarily, looking back, I would have looked for a kind of a discernible break between being asleep and dreaming and suddenly being wide awake. And there was nothing like that. There was a faint sensation of like click. And it was like one waking state into another waking state, into a fully waking state.
Mm.
And in that fully waking state, I got up and went into the bathroom, hoping that I would see it again, so that I could make friends. And I never saw it. It was gone.
That is quite amazing. The description, it calls to mind the solstice centaur being.
I'm sorry. What kind of being?
So there was an episode, and I don't know if you've heard it, but I spoke to a guy in Austria, actually. He had gone to a cottage with his partner one Christmas, and this being outside started to encircle the property, and
Hmm.
and it had a horse's body, and the front part of it had a human face.
Oh, oh, I think I heard that one
Yeah,
episode.
like a centaur. That is really fascinating. So,
Yeah, I've never seen any pictures of this sort of thing. Um, that the next morning, of course, made the mistake of telling my housemates all about this. They made fun of it. And that night, the next night, I went up and I found that somebody had left a vegetable cleaver on my bed with a note saying, "In case it comes back."
right.
And so
Yeah,
so I took that in good spirit. I just thought, well, they just what else are they going to say? But I was so sorry. I felt that I had missed a real opportunity there to connect with something.
I bet. Yeah, this is so it is so interesting because it makes me wonder, did they come at a particular time in your life? Do you think there was anything, going on at that time or about to happen in your life?
No, nothing. There was nothing unusual. I was meditating a lot, but it was still an unusual occurrence, even for somebody who was meditating a lot. It wasn't something that had happened before, and it didn't happen again.
Mm.
It's just somehow I just suddenly wandered into that dimension long enough to, or slipped into it. I don't know. There was nothing conscious about trying to be in that space or trying to see something like that. It just seemingly happened by accident
And it happened at the side of the bed again.
at the side of the bed again. Yeah, interesting point. That hadn't occurred to me, but yeah, you're right. And the first encounter, of course, in Austria was terrifying, and this one was friendly, and I kind of dropped the ball. I wish I had been more uh, or less reactive, rather.
Did you ever try to reach out to it again?
I think in my mind I did, but I didn't go to the trouble of making soup for it the way I had done with
Yeah.
the other thing. But I felt the loss of it. I felt it as a missed opportunity.
It certainly sounds like these worlds are, there's a fondness there, isn't there?
You mean on my part?
On both parts.
Yeah, yeah. There's a fondness. I mean, ever since I had these experiences, I've become really fascinated in the European otherworld traditions, just trying to kind of, I guess, in some way, reach back out to them, even if I can't experience them anymore. At least trying to maintain some level of connection.
Had you, in recent years or in recent times, meditated with the intention of reaching out to these worlds?
No, and that's not a bad idea. Um, that's something I could probably, excuse me, try to do.
Yeah,
I don't know what's stopped me from doing it because it's almost an obvious line to take, but I think maybe, and this of course is very, you know, not very sensible, but maybe of a fear of disappointment that the connection might now be gone and I might not get it back.
I think it seems to me that it's always there. It's whether, I mean, it certainly hasn't gone away, but I guess your intention to open I always say to people when we're doing a healing or something that it's helpful to say, I'm opening to the very deepest part of myself. And when you do that, and I know that you know what I mean when I say that because you're
Hmm.
used to meditation. And if you intend before you go into meditation, the other thing I should say you can do is to have a go at drawing that being or the previous being, just your interpretation of it. So if you do
Hmm.
that and you maybe sort of, sit with it for a while and kind of contemplate it and then go into a meditation, that could be one method.
Yeah, that's worth trying. At the same time, I've been looking at a lot of books like Danu Forrest's book about Gwyn ap Nudd.
It's a great book.
Oh, it's a wonderful book. And I've been doing some writing of my own as a way of trying to keep some connection alive.
Yeah, I had enjoyed reading, the snippets that you had sent me, where as in childhood, and equally how wonderful they are, your adult experiences, and I just find it, I don't know, there's something about them that feels really promising.
That's very very good of you to say. It's there is a connection. It's unmistakable to me, and where it will go or how it will show up again is something I can't really I can't be sure of. But there is a yearning of some kind there. I had a it's not the very same sort of thing, but back in '89, I was walking down through the German Alps, and you know where Garmisch is and the Zugspitze and that area.
Mm.
And as I was walking down there, at one point in one of the valleys, I looked off to my left, and there was a patch of meadow, and the sunlight was hitting just that patch, and it had lit it up in kind of a golden light. And I wish I'd gone up there. This is almost like that poem, the Pearl of Great Price.
Mm.
I wanted to. I was thinking, if only I could just go up there and sit in the middle of that. Anything could happen, and yet I didn't do it. And so that kind of yearning, I do feel quite a lot.
I know what I know what you mean. There's something, it's like the sense of being on the precipice of something and not quite.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It's like it's there. You're millimeters away from it. You could just walk sideways and go right into it, and yet somehow it doesn't happen. But you're so close to it. It's right there. Yeah, it's a strange kind of longing.
Mm. Yeah, I really understand. And I don't know what you feel about this, but there's something really primal about it as well. Sometimes I feel like there's a sense that with that yearning in particular, that it feels like something that is within us that we no longer use,
That we no longer.
that we no longer exercise.
Yeah, and I'm never sure really how to do that, how to put it into play, or how to start it. But and possibly because when I've experienced these things, they seem to have come to me. It's like I don't cross into that realm. That realm kind of overtakes me or crosses over me. I think that's part of it is that I'm concerned that or I feel that I can't make the connection from my side. I kind of yearn for it on some level, but I can't make it happen. I don't know if that makes any sense as a. Uh, it's I don't experience that as an obstacle. It's just kind of maybe a I don't know disability, I suppose, in that sense.
Yeah, I mean, I'm wondering if even as a child you were yearning for these worlds and open to these worlds, and what you experienced as frightening, but there's always just been this. It sounds to me, at least that there always seems to have been this very strong connection between you and these worlds. And I mean, I I'd be interested to see kind of what happens if you, with protection, lean into these experiences and intend, to be open to them. If that felt right to you, you'd have to feel right, and you'd have to be, at in a good place in your life and somewhere that felt safe and as I say, with protection, as in calling upon whichever beings or deities, um, or whichever kind of figures, or even loved ones that have passed over, to call upon them to protect you whilst you are leaning into these worlds in whatever way felt right to you.
Yeah,
Would that feel okay to do that for yourself?
that's yeah. Well, that's certainly worth a try. I would have to kind of drop my guard a little bit. I think more than I'm often able to.
Mm. Yeah, and I'm left wondering kind of whether, because your dad being working for the CIA, he would have had to have had a certain type of kind of insight and an openness for more than the average person, say, for instance, in order, as part of being able to carry out his role. And I do wonder whether it's kind of passed down the family. That's just a sense of something that I'm left with, and we'll never know.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. No, we won't. I mean, he passed on many years ago, and I've never actually had an adult conversation with him about these things, which is maybe a loss that didn't have to happen as a loss.
did you know if your grandparent, did you ever chat to your grandparents about these sorts of worlds or beings or folklore or anything like that?
No, and didn't. I wouldn't have had a chance to because we moved around so much. I never really got to know them very well.
Yeah. Yeah, this is it. And I think that is something worth pointing out, is that the sense of, moving, this liminal sense of moving from one place to another. And I don't know whether you remember another one of my guests, Jason Atomic. In fact, I know that you were familiar with this one because we had a bit of a chat about it via email,
Yes.
didn't
Yeah.
we?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
That was very interesting. That one.
It really was, and like you, it was a being that appeared at the side of a bed, and his was a blue being that shouted at the side of his bed and scared him. And but he too moved a lot as a child, and I think about the kind of liminality of this, of the shifting and the way that these beings come in at the edges of things, and so that's why I was wondering what was happening when you were in the Buddhist shared house, and perhaps even at the beginning of your Buddhist um, teachings, when you had the being that walked alongside you, where the
Yeah.
sort of thresholds in your life, either having just moved somewhere or about to move away somewhere or beginning a new chapter of your life. This is when they kind of tend to show up, these sorts of experiences. So it's
Yeah.
just something to think about.
Another thing just occurred to me when you mentioned my grandparents. My mother's father was from Yorkshire.
Mhm.
Um, he was a Methodist minister, so I don't think that he would have been very sensitive, or at least very welcoming of things like this. But I wonder whether there's some thing on that very near, close branch of my English family that might have been passed along. But that's just speculation. I don't know.
Well, I mean, he was open to God. We can say that.
I'm sorry?
We can say that he was open to God.
Yeah, he was.
So,
Yeah, so there was, yeah. You're right. So there was some openness there. It was just focused in a different direction.
yeah, and he was able to bring that to, to others that may have attended his, people in their, I can't think of what the word is, in the congregation. So
Mm-hmm.
he brought this sense of, he brought the word of God to
Yeah,
others in his congregation. So as a kind of conduit of some kind.
yeah, yeah. Good. That's a good word.
Mm.
Yeah, conduit for something vaster.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, it's been absolutely wonderful to speak to you, Rick. I'm so glad we got a chance to do this at last. And if you do decide to explore further, then I hope that goes really well for you, and I hope you get a sense of kind of satisfaction with that and contentedness with that, because it feels like it's left um, as a sense of regret.
Yeah, there is a bit, but yeah, it's something that still needs some kind of fulfillment. And
Yeah.
but I've loved talking with you. I'm glad that we did get to do this finally.
Yeah, me too. Well, thank you very much, and I hope you have a lovely day there because it's early where you are.
Uh-huh.
Um, and yeah, just thanks so much again for being so open and for sharing these absolutely amazing experiences, which I know will touch many people.
Well, thank you again for doing what you're doing. It's just I was so glad that I found your podcast on television here, and I just began watching them all the time because I think, great, somebody else experiences these things. This is perfect.
Time to renovate. Time to
A meditation follows. Please do not listen while driving or operating machinery. So we're going to settle into where we are seated or lying, just really feeling the support beneath us and behind us if we're seated, just really feeling into wherever you are lying or sitting, really supporting you. And it feels like a good time of year to think about some gateways that we might decide to cross. And so beginning to go inside ourselves, let's take 3 deep breaths. And the first is just allowing ourselves this time to be here together and giving ourselves this space. And the second is just to let all worries from this morning, yesterday, last night, just to drift away. And the third breath, to really allow ourselves to open to the possibility of transitions taking place in our lives. So we're going to begin by doing a body scan, a healing body scan. So just with your eyes closed now, placing your attention in the center of your forehead, just above the brow line. Have a sense of some sensation on the skin there and the center of your forehead above the brow line. Maybe it feels like a buzzing, maybe a warmth, tingling, a sense of energy there. See that place of the third eye beginning to open. And above, from the heavenly realms, you are being given the gift of a cleansing, healing, golden oil, which you see dripping onto your third eye. And your third eye opens further to let this in, to begin to fill this physical vessel of our bodies. And you see the golden oil begin to fill the space around your forehead and the top of your head, really enlightening all within, all the molecules, down past the eyes, down through the face, out to the sides of the ears, cleansing all the tubes within, the eyes, the mouth, through your jaw and your teeth. This cleansing oil moves, healing the back of the neck and the top of the spine. See it move down now, filling your neck, your shoulders, the tops of your shoulders, down into the cavity of your chest, your heart area, your lungs, moving down your arms. This golden oil down towards your fingers, your wrists, bones, and your skeletal system being filled with this golden oil. Your joints being released of tension. See it move down through, past your heart and lungs into your digestive system. Your inner organs and systems being cleansed and enriched by this healing oil, which continues to drip down to you from the heavenly realms as it moves into your reproductive area, your hips, where it's really circling around all the organs within that need healing now. As it moves into your seat and down your legs, and all the time replacing molecules and cells that need renewing and replacing and healing. Through the knees and down into your calves, your ankles, the heels, sole of your feet, tops of your feet, toes, big toes, second toes, middle toes, fourth toes, baby toes. And now you see your whole body glowing with this heavenly golden oil. The richness of the gold reminds you of the autumn leaves, the way that they fall from the trees when they are ready to let go. And for a moment, consider what you are willing to let go from your life at this time. And if you let go of those things, what 3 things would be different in your life? You could imagine situations at home, at work, in relationships, your goals, where 3 situations where if you stepped into a new way of being, what would that look like? With taking some time to imagine what it would feel like to step through into those 3 different ways of being in your life. If you let go of fear, what would that look like? If you let go of resentment, what would that look like? Just taking some time now to imagine whose those 3 situations might be. Now just envision, just in front of where you are now, there is a membrane, like a bubble, a membrane just within your reach, perhaps a quarter of a meter from your body or closer. And imagine now you start to move towards this membrane. Perhaps you start to place a hand through or another part of your body through this membrane. You can see that on the other side is your life in that way of being in those situations. If you think of one of those situations, you start to go towards the membrane, noticing, is it very simple to place your arm or your head or your foot through? Is there resistance? Now, if there's resistance, just allow yourself to open again to the possibility. It's just a possibility that it might be attainable to step through. So again, start to move through this membrane. You might now find that parts of your body are already through. You might find that you have fully stepped through the membrane. But whatever stage you're at, have a sense of what it is like to be in your body in this new way of being. What are the colours like? What are the temperature? What is the temperature like here? How does it feel in your muscles, in your bones, to be in this new reality, this new way of being? How does it feel to breathe here? How does it feel to have your feet on the ground here? You might decide to put your roots down here and see red roots coming down through your body and into the ground here in this new way of being. Making yourself at home. In the situations in your life, what would be different? What would feel different? If you still find there is a part of you still outside the membrane, then again you can encourage the possibility that it's something to step through into this new way of being, that it's safe to step through. And if there is a part of you that still wants to remain behind, that's okay. And just note that and notice which parts of you do pass through into this new way of being. As this is something that you can practice again. For the parts that are through in this new perceptive bubble, just really allow that to move into every part of your system now. And as you do so, you might notice that there are people in this new way of being to greet you. And they might be your ancestors, they might be your friends or partners, or people that you haven't seen for a long time. Just note who they are that are encouraging you into this new space, welcoming you. And you can decide that this is the place from which you would want to live your life from now on. And so, wherever you are, allow yourself the sense that you can explore being in this membrane, seeing the world through new eyes. And if there is still a little part of you that remains in the old bubble, that is also fine. And in time, as you walk around your home, as you walk down the street, you are seeing yourself walking into this new bubble, that the old one just no longer resonates. It drifts away behind. It was just another way of being. But there's this new way of being now that feels better for you. So feel yourself now. Sense into your body and which parts feel different. Which aspects feel different in your body. And sense the support beneath you and behind you the noises in the room, the smells, the temperature on your skin. Still sensing this glow from your body as you allow yourself to come back into this earthly realm, but feeling renewed, enlightened, fresh perspective, a possibility of a new way of being that can be encouraged every time you take a step forward, placing your foot on the ground and seeing the world from this new bubble of perception. And allow yourself to move your toes and your fingers, your shoulders, and very gently, when you feel ready, starting to open your eyes. Taking some deep breaths. Allowing the sensations in your body to settle. Encouraging that perception. And being open to what follows. A sense of protection and a welcoming and a grounding. Might be nice to go and move your bodies in some way afterwards, just to feel into this new way of being. I hope you've enjoyed this time together. Thank you very much for coming, and I hope you will have a very blessed day. Love to hear how you got on in your own time and in your own way. Thanks so much for listening and watching. If you enjoyed the podcast, please consider joining us on Patreon for dozens more episodes of unreleased bonus content, monthly online events, and a private chat. We are a warm, supportive community, and it really helps to support the project. Find us on patreon.com/The Modern Fairy Sightings Podcast.
Spectre Vision Radio.